We start, as always, as we catch up with Cowboy head coach Mike Boynton a little differently this week, but this is not uncommon given the circumstances. And, let's start with that. Obviously, a pause in your operations. The Oklahoma game had to be postponed. So what was it like during the break? What things were you able to do? What things could you not do? Obviously, you couldn't practice or play games. Just take us through it if you don't mind.
Well, there was just, first of all, obvious time of trying to get some clarification, trying to verify the information that we were receiving. And then with that, trying to make sure that we were clear with the kids on what we were doing, what was permissible, what wasn't, because in different, under different circumstances, depending on where you are, if you've been exposed or not, or if you are contact tracing, you're allowed to do different things. So anyone who actually tested positive was totally isolated and not able to do anything here over the last week or so. All of our primary contacts were allowed to do very limited activities. And then we had a couple who had neither tested positive or were contact. And so they were able to do a little bit more. So just getting that information out to them and then trying to put a plan together because, this isn't kind of professional sports. We don't own the rights to the facility all to ourselves, right? We share this facility, the office space and the building with other athletes, other coaches. And so we have to be mindful of what we're exposing them to, as, obviously our women's basketball program and our wrestling team are also in season. And so one of the fortunate things is both of those programs were on the road this past weekend at the onset of this stuff. And so we had more access than probably we would if it had happened this week. But at the same time, it wasn't totally open and our locker room was shuttered and guys couldn't hang out as much as possible, as much as they normally would. So it was definitely a different week. At the same time, I think it was a learning experience for us. We probably one of very few teams who hasn't had any kind of disruptions to our playing season to this point. And so it's a good reminder that, none of us can let our guards down, that we need to continue to be diligent, follow all the guidelines and stay away from crowds and wash our hands and wear a mask as much as possible. And so in some ways it was good. And I wouldn't say it's good timing because you never want to disrupt positive momentum. And I feel like we had some positive momentum heading into the weekend game against the Bedlam game. At the same time, having a chance to kind of step back and reevaluate things, kind of come down from the high of beating Kansas. We won't have a hangover from that in that regard. But at the same time, we're eager to get back playing. The kids are excited to have an opportunity to compete again.
So it was a best case scenario, really, as far as getting back to practice was concerned. You were able to get back to work on Wednesday of this week and go ahead and play the game this weekend against Baylor. So as you go back into, after a brief break, practicing and playing games, what's your biggest concern about that transition?
Just what the time away, how that'll affect our rhythm, to a lesser degree, but to a certain degree, how our conditioning will be. We have become a team who have gotten comfortable playing really fast. And that took some time. And so not practicing for 5 or 6 days as a team certainly could have an effect on our ability to jump right back into playing that way. And doing it against a team who's probably certainly one of the two best, but maybe the best team in the country right now will present a daunting task for our guys. But I'm sure they'll be excited to go out there and compete with one another and knowing that these opportunities come few and far between, and we're lucky to have it.
Obviously, you want your team to maintain its confidence. At the same time, you don't want any bad habits to creep in after a break. So where do you find that balance, knowing that it might be bumpy getting started, but also striving to get better? Where do you find that balance, making sure your guys stay confident in what may be a rough game back because they haven't played in a while, but at the same time pushing them to be as good as they can be?
Well, as coaches, we got to step back and what you think of as normal, you kind of got to put off to the side and say, let's reevaluate what we expect right now. Not from an effort standpoint, not from a focus standpoint, but mostly from an execution standpoint. Because again, the game of basketball is a rhythm game. You need reps, you need continuous reps, you need to make mistakes and learn from them. And not being able to do that will certainly impact us. At the same time, we want to push these guys to be their best. We want to be mindful of the guys who have been impacted by the virus and not put them out there too soon. But the guys who haven't, we want to put them out there and give them a chance to go out there and continue to compete at the highest level in the Big 12, which we know is the best conference in the country.
You know, one of the cool things that happened during your pause is that you awarded Dee Mitchell a scholarship, and you did it in creative fashion, in really what was a wonderful fashion, by going to his workplace at Walmart and giving him the news there. And of course, that went just crazy on social media and national media for that matter. But if you would just share again your thoughts on Dee Mitchell and what his story not only means to you, but to his teammates.
Well, I think it goes beyond this program. As you talked about the national attention it got, Dee's example is one that I think can transcend sports. It can transcend college athletics. And it can really have an impact on a lot of young people out there all over our country about the value of perseverance, not allowing your circumstances to dictate your attitude and what you believe you can achieve. And I just feel so fortunate that I happen to be the coach here at the time that this kid's coming through, because he's made me a better coach. He's allowed me to keep things in perspective, and for us to be able to reward him, because we didn't give him anything. He earned this. For us to be able to reward him after the sacrifices he made to continue to be a part of our program in the fall is something that I gave very little thought to. Once there was the opportunity presented, it was really a no-brainer. We've got some creative folks around here who helped figure out a way to do it in a way that we could probably help him feel the best about it. But undoubtedly, it was one of the five most gratifying moments of my life so far.
And by the way, Jessica Morrey has a detailed story, an in-depth story about Dee Mitchell coming up on this show that you will not want to miss. So we have that to look forward to as well. Let's turn our attention to Baylor. Number 2 team in the country, according to the polls. The computers say in the net they're number 1. So take your pick. It's Baylor or Gonzaga. What things do you see with them that concern you the most? I mean, when you're in the top 5 in the country in both offensive and defensive efficiency, that tells you the bases are pretty well covered, I guess.
Yeah, they just don't have a lot of flaws, and obviously as a coach, you mull over film and stats and try to figure out what can we take advantage of? Where are their weaknesses? And they just don't have many. They're terrific on the defensive end, primarily because they've got really good individual defensive players. Davion Mitchell, he reminds me of Javon Carter defensively, and we all know how much of a problem he was for opposing teams on the defensive end. But he's also better offensively. He's efficient. He can shoot the three. He can get to the rim. He's strong. He's got great feet. And then Mark Vital, for my money, I think he's the best all-around defender in the country. And I only give him the edge over Mitchell because I think he can guard your point guard and he can guard your 5-man. And there are very few people who can guard that many different positions, right? A lot of guys can guard anybody on the perimeter or either post player. But literally, I'm not sure there's anybody in the country who Scott Drew could play that he wouldn't feel comfortable letting Mark Vital be the guy to guard him. And then they got guys who are elite offensive playmakers. Jared Butler, who was terrific against Kansas, had 30 points and 8 assists, preseason player of the year in our league for a reason. And so they're well-rounded. They got depth, they got size and athleticism. And so they present great challenges for us. I'm excited to see how our kids respond, specifically coming off a little bit of a break in action here over the last week.
Stay with us. Coming up, Jim Littell and Casey Kendrick talk cowgirl basketball, and as mentioned earlier, the wonderful story of Dee Mitchell in depth from Jessica Morrey. We'll be back.
Living with joint pain. Take the first step at mercy.net/cowboysortho.
This is not good.
I need you to pick me up at 5:30.
and then everybody runs.
What is he doing? He missed the spot.
This college application, I gotta get all my references. It's just a lot.
I can get used to having my own chauffeur.
Oh, yeah?
No texting.
All right.
Watch out for dogs.
I got it, I know.
Don't let Trevor drive.
Thanks, Dave. And joining us now is the head man for the Oklahoma State Cowgirls, Coach Jim Littell. And, Coach, coming off that massive road trip, we talked about the Iowa State game last week. You were headed to Morgantown, done with that. Now you've got Baylor out of the way. And, you know, it's obviously been a really tough stretch logistically and schedule-wise the last few ball games.
Well, it sure has. You know, anytime you go from Iowa State to West Virginia, it's a difficult trip, but every group needs to be resilient. It's going to happen to a lot of teams within the conference, but not only was it a rough trip in terms of travel, we played 3 really good basketball teams and played 2 of those teams on their home court. And right now, if we look at the schedule, our losses are to the top 2 teams and West Virginia on the road. And I think they're in second place right now as well. So, or third place right now. So we've lost to some good teams, and we just got to stay where we stay the course and keep our composure, because there's a lot of winnable games coming.
Well, and Coach, you know, this league does that to you. You go 5-0 and you feel like you've really established yourself. And then you go through a period where you go, you know, through the stretch you've gone through. And then just like that, confidence is gone and you're wondering if you're ever going to win another game. And that is not unique to Oklahoma State. That is what this league does to almost everybody, certainly with the exception of maybe Baylor.
It's true. I mean, Baylor doesn't seem to go through those stretches in the conference that others do, but and West Virginia's on a good roll right now. Iowa State is on a good roll, but you know, everybody's going to go through a tough stretch on the road against difficult teams. You've got to play hard. You got to compete against everybody, but you got to be able to turn the page and be pretty resilient after a tough road loss.
Well, and that's the trick now, Coach, is to get these kids to find a way to get their moxie back and get ready for this next challenge, which is on the road at Kansas State.
I think the key is how we as coaches react to it. And I was fine after the ball game the other night, and they realize that there's some games coming, but you know, there needs to be a little bit of sense of urgency too when we go to K-State. We need to be up for that game like we were up for the Texas Tech game, and it's getting important that we find a win here.
Well, and the other game between now and the next time we get a chance to visit is going to be against Texas. And Coach, so then you've got at Kansas State, Texas, still some tough stretches. A game on the road, the Big 12, no matter where it's at, is tough. Texas coming in here, followed by back-to-back games with Kansas. So what was a really tough stretch is now followed up by a really important stretch.
Well, it definitely is, and they're all tough, and you've got a couple teams in Kansas State who is searching for the first win. They've played everybody close, and we go to Bramlage to play, and it's been a difficult place to play. And then you got a good Texas team that lost a game that they didn't count on losing. So Coach Schaefer is going to have that group playing at a high level when they come in. So it's about getting better. It's about playing to your expectations. It's little things like making 2-footers and free throws and finding a way to get a good feeling about yourself and getting your confidence back.
No doubt about it, Coach. You got a dog over there on your right side that looks to me like it's got its confidence. I don't know who that is over there, but it, I don't know if it's a he or she, but it looks confident.
She's enjoying life. There's not much pressure on her right now.
Yeah, to be her would be a good thing. Coach, appreciate the visit as always. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right. Thanks, Case.
Need to take a break. When we come back, one of the great stories so far this year has been the addition of Dee Mitchell to the scholarship level for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. We've got an in-depth look at that story and more coming up right after this.
This one is intercepted.
Decorative towel.
There was a mess. I wiped up the mess.
Yeah, you did. When game day is a go, there's a Bud Light there.
ADM milling is really a part of the fabric of the Enid community. So if we were to have lost them, it would have been more than the 70 jobs that they employ.
OG&E, the City of Enid, and the Enid Regional Development Alliance were all great to work with. Not only does it allow for the growth of the new mill, but also the power is there to make that happen for the future.
Most days around 6 a.m., you can find Dee Mitchell here. And then he goes here, now here, and he ends his days here.
I wake up at 6, like almost every day. I probably shoot at 7, or sometimes I'll shoot at 6. I'll lift at right after that. I'll go to study hall, and then usually I'll go to work from like 12 to 10 at night. So I've taken 20 hours of school. I work 40 hours, and I try to get in the gym whenever I can.
To most people, that schedule may seem impossible, but that word isn't in Dee's vocabulary. When he walked on to Oklahoma State's basketball team as a freshman in 2018, he had no idea what could become possible.
I thought it was temporary. I definitely didn't think I would have done the things that I've done. And I have a lot more that I want to do, but just thinking back to when I first tried out and to where I am now, and how much publicity I have, and how much I've done at the university and for the team is just amazing to even think I've done it.
But there was a moment this past fall when Dee thought his time with Cowboy basketball might be up. He was faced with a tough decision. He wanted to take more classes, but that just wasn't in the budget. So he chose to get a job to help his mom pay for school.
When Dee told me he decided that he wanted to get a job, I said, listen, I'll support whatever you do as long as it does not impact your grades at school. And I said, well, what about basketball? You're not going to be able, how are you going to be able to play? And he was like, well, I'll just talk to Coach Mike and just give up. And I said, what? And he said, well, Mama, I just think it's time that I, help out.
But head coach Mike Boynton had other plans.
When I found out I was going to have to work, I actually went in telling coach that I might have to stop playing basketball. And he was so understanding and willing to work with me and my time that he gave me an opportunity to continue to play. So we worked that out, and he said it would be fine if I can make like 1 or 2 practices a week. As long as I was there and still a part of the team, he would be happy. And he just gave me the option of, doing what I love to do and doing what I had to do. So I appreciate him for that.
I think that gave Dee the drive to say, I can do all this and I can do all 3 and still be able to make it. I can show Coach Mike that I can make the practice and still be here as a backup, possibly if he needs me. And he did that, And I'm glad that Coach Mike offered that to him, because I think if he didn't, I think it would have killed his spirit.
They say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And for the past few months, Dee has been going nonstop.
I think Dee Mitchell epitomizes what I want our program to be about. Just people who work as hard as they can in whatever the adverse situation that they're going through to make the most of it. And so it just shows you what you can do when you put your mind to it. He's a kid who's resilient, he's tough, and joy and thrill for us to have as a part of our program every day.
There have been some memorable moments in Dee's career with Cowboy basketball.
They've got 3.5 to go against this scrappy Cowboys bunch. 3 goes down for the walk-on, Dee Mitchell.
Dee Mitchell, a former walk-on, is getting the start. First career start.
Dee Mitchell's going to dress tonight.
Come on.
Yes, sir.
But none more special than what happened on January 17th, 2021.
And we're going to go in and tell Dee Mitchell that he's going to be on scholarship. It's a well-deserved and hard-earned opportunity for him. He's done so much for our program. I thought today was a great opportunity 3 years later to let him know that he's going to be on scholarship. It's something you earned, right? It wasn't given to you, but nobody has.
I haven't cried in a long time. You know, it's real good to see everybody. You know, it's a big surprise, and I'm just thankful and real blessed right now, and very appreciative of everybody from my Walmart family and my Cowboy family. So I just thank everybody, and I appreciate all y'all.
I'm so proud. Like I'm telling you, like my heart is so full right now that I couldn't be more prouder than him. Like, it's, you know, it's one of those, it's like a dream come true. Like, this kid is an amazing kid. And I pray that God continues to protect him and watch over him, and that he continues to, you know, do the right thing. And at the end of the day, you know, he made sacrifices, and it was good ones. I mean, it was a good thing, and it was a good outcome. And I'm just proud of him.